Yeah, good evening. If you're watching me right now from wherever you're watching from, welcome to Maegun's Diary Live. And we'll be discussing the selected topics for tonight. And just tag along, make your own contribution, and let us talk. So I'll be talking on the 90 days absence of the president from the country. I'll be talking on the restructuring, the campaign and the Biafra struggle. So Nnamdi Kanu, I'm going to dabble into, Nnamdi Kanu and the Arewa, brickbats. Then the sad one that happened today, the killings in Anambra of some worshippers there today. So we have to say one or two things on that as well. Then the current 8 campaigns on the social media, against one another, one religion against another religion, one tribe against another tribe in Nigeria. The new phenomenon that is that seems to be taking over all of us right now. So we need to say one or two things on that as well. So then 2019, because whether we like it or not, there is already ongoing permutations and all that on what is going to happen in 2019. So we need to, talk to ourselves as well, the youth and these politicians. So I call them politicians. Then the Yoruba nation. The Yoruba nation. As a Yoruba man, I want to say one or two things again on the Yoruba nation, especially the division within, the pretense, the hypocrisy, and the rest of it. So I want to, speak on that as well tonight. So sit back and let us enjoy another, mind-blowing moment together. It's about Nigeria. Nigeria, our country. The country that destiny has sort of brought us, to know. Nigeria. A country that is so great, but is so weak because of the offspring of the same entity who are hell-bent in destroying the country, destroying the future of the country. And as long as they are all right, they don't give a damn about any other person. That is the country, we all originated from. And so far, so good. Disappointment will be an understatement when the story of Nigeria is being told. Disappointment will be an understatement. Outbreaks upon outbreaks, have sort of become the norm in our country. We take what is wrong as if it's nothing. We take every issue with levity. We treat every serious situation with sentiment. We do things, abnormally, but always hoping that things will be all right or will become normal. And that is why we need to keep up the campaign, the awareness on how to open people's minds, to tell them that, listen, it is what comes from inside, that really makes you, not what comes from without. So you can't be giving nothing to the, to the progress of the country and expect a miracle that, things will just, miraculously fix themselves. It doesn't work that way. We have a very, very corrupt, fantastically corrupt system operating in our country. And we all know that. So now it seems to us that no matter how sad our story, turns up every day, it never really bothers us. Like bothered us to the point of taking action. We talk, we lament, we complain, we analyze, we do things like the rest of the world. But we fail to do what the rest of the world are doing, taking action. When you know something is wrong, you change it. When you know something is right, you build it. That is how the society is meant to run. But we have a very, very corrupt system, right from the smallest to the mightiest in our country. It's so bad that every wrong thing is right to us, depending on which perspective, or what perspective we are viewing it from. The sentiment is so real that even those who are educated are now beginning to sound stupid. And at the same time, it makes it worse because they don't even know that out of their own ignorance is where all this backwardness and this stagnancy and this retrogression comes from. Their sentiment. Evil people will succeed, will always succeed, as long as the good people keeps mute and keeps quiet whenever they are supposed to speak up. We have a rotten system that says healthcare is actually a luxury in my country. It's a luxury that, the rich, the elite, the politicians would rather campaign or use it to campaign and curry votes than do something about it. That is the country we live in. A country where leaders don't take responsibilities but always passing the buck. A country where title is more valuable to, the holder of such title than the responsibility that comes with such title. That is the country we come from, the country of sentiment, hypocrisy, a country of illiterate, ignorance. That is the country we all come from. We complain, we lament, we do this, we do other, analyze another, but we fail on something. Fail to take action when it is right. We have a president who is having, a serious health issue that you and I know of, but we can't even answer the right question that what is wrong with our president. We are a country of 180 million people, plus or minus. But we are so dumb that everything thrown at us is taken in just however we want to take it in without acting on it, or any of them. It feels normal to us. It's not the first time. In fact, many of us believe that whatever calamity that befalls us as a people won't be the last one. You always believe that because your minds are molded in a way that hardship means something important to you. That's how I'll put it. Because if hardship is not important to you, you will reject hardship in every way you find yourself and every opportunity that presents itself for you to do that. It won't cost us our eyes to build standard hospital that can take care of our president in our country by our own medical practitioners. Yes, he is the president of the country. And no one is, indisposable, so to say, when it comes to this health issue. We can fall sick anytime. But we run a system where secrecy is paramount, is supreme. Secrecy. People who come to us in the open to seek for our support now become so scared of us that they now think telling us about what is wrong with them means that we will wish them dead. Yet we gave them that sovereignty. We gave them that coverage, that power that gives them that, opportunity to be able to keep things so secret as much as the health of the president of the country, to the point that they are not even challenged. Because this won't be the first time that a president in Nigeria, will have a health issue or health crisis. It won't be the first time. And to my other Nigerians, to them, it won't be the last time. So we will live through it, and it doesn't mean anything. Because an average Nigerian doesn't even understand what the power of the president of a country truly means. To them, is just the alpha, the omega, the know-it-all, the man that will never make mistake. That is the only thing many average Nigerians knows of their president. So whether he's here, whether he's not there, whether, it doesn't matter. He's still the president. That is the understanding of an average Nigerian when it comes to who is your president. That is why they find it very, a little bit unacceptable when you challenge the president or you challenge any public official. Public official in Nigeria. People think, why would you do that? He is a powerful man. He knows better than all of us because he's the governor. He understands our situation better than us, even without listening to us, because he is the president. But no one is saying, how many people do you think are suffering what our president is suffering? The same health crisis our president is suffering from. There are other thousands of Nigerians who are going through that same health problem right now. But they have not been diagnosed to be told of what is really wrong with them. Many of them are currently lying down, waiting for death in different churches in Nigeria, looking for miracle because they don't even have a clue of what is wrong with them. But we have a president who knows what is wrong with him. And he knows that prayers alone won't fix that. He left a country of 180 million people to come to an island of just 60, 70 million people to seek medical care. And for 90 days, the instrument of government has been dragging, has been like a perambulating with all in the cycle that you don't even know what direction they are taking us. In the morning, they give us hope. In the evening, they give us, God bless us. But our hypocrisy makes it more difficult to even treat the problem. The problem of talking about the president's health is not basically because someone hates him. It's actually because we know that if something that is happening to you cannot encourage you to build healthcare system in Nigeria, even if that is the only legacy you have, go and check the budget of the health ministry. Then you will know that these people are just heartless. They are just heartless, and they will play politics with everything. They have made Fayose your enemy. Just because he's saying what you don't want to hear. Just because he's saying it the way you don't want him to say it. You want him to put respect into saying the truth that you know, but your hypocrisy and your blocked mind will never allow you to reason right. What if what is wrong with Buhari happens to you? Who is going to take you to London? Who is going to pay for your bill in America? Who is going to give you that top and world-class medical care in India? If what is wrong with the president happens to you. Because they have made you believe that once you believe in God and you accept a particular religion as your, as your savior and all that, what the same amen that is happening to Buhari cannot happen to you. So because of that, it is no issue if we have to discuss the health of the president. Rather than you to speak sense to yourself, you are telling yourself that your God is powerful for you. Buhari visits Mecca. He's been visiting Mecca for God knows since when. He prays to God directly. He speaks to the most powerful religious people in the world. Buhari is one of the most powerful men or powerful person in the world. Whether we take it or not, he's the president of the most powerful, the biggest black nation on earth. So that gives him the opportunity, it gives him the door to meet the best of the best. But who do you have to meet? So at the end of the day, because of our poor healthcare system, over the time, the president is suffering from an ailment that cannot be, properly cared for in Nigeria. And he's the president of 180 million people. Do you now think what is wrong with Buhari is only existing in Buhari's life? Because that is what they made you believe. We need people who can at least... Buhari is not even just the only person. Immediately, Jonathan left government. before Jonathan even left government, his wife was admitted into an hospital in Germany, or where was that then? That she came back later to give a testimony that she almost died. In fact, she died, but she came back to life. Not in Nigeria, not in Nigeria hospitals, but somewhere far, far away from Nigeria, where they are governing. And guess who paid the bill? You and I. Directly or indirectly, we paid the bill. So she survived it. And she came back to the country. And immediately they left the government. Almost every member of their cabinet, including the vice president, the former vice president, Namadi Sambo, they all ended up in the hospitals. Not in Nigeria, but here in the UK, in America, and other places. Not in Nigeria. The country they ruled for 5 years. 5 years. They couldn't get proper health care. And they want to tell us that they've been so successful. Nigerian leaders are so shameful. They are so shameless. They have no shame. But our hypocrisy makes it hard for us to tell ourselves the truth. We deserve the best. We deserve the best from these criminals. Our president has been away for 90 days. 90 days. And someone is telling us that he is ill and hearty and is not in Abuja doing his job for 3 months. 3 months. Out of the 2 years of his assumption of office, the old man has been in office for less than a year. And to you, because of your hypocrisy, because of your ignorance, because of your tribalism and the rest of it, you don't see anything wrong in that. You don't see anything wrong in that, as long as he's the president. But I see everything wrong in that, because he is able to get that medical care because he's the president. But is he himself considering an average Nigerian that he may never know or he may never meet, but that one knows him as his president? An average Nigerian. Is he ever occurred to the president, the Buhari administration, Mr. Buhari himself, that someone somewhere in Nigeria could be suffering the same thing he's suffering right now? But rather than them to do the right thing, rather than them to see this as a challenge that everything is wrong with our medical system, healthcare system in Nigeria, they started playing propaganda with the health of the president. They started spreading propaganda in the north that the president was poisoned. Imagine that. People who are supposed to know better, people who are supposed to put things right, people you and I trusted that they would take us to the promised land. You gave them your votes. Instead of them to now look into this as a challenge, as something that is just calling on them that what is happening to Buhari can happen to anybody. But what if it happens to any of them and they are not in government? Who is going to pay the bill? Instead of them to do that, they are playing propaganda with the health of the president. They know the president is incapacitated. How hard is that for anyone to understand? Nigerians love Buhari. They voted for him. The majority voted for him. That is what our system produced. Is the president. How come that those who voted for him can't poison him, but those who are working with him, those who are closer to him, those who feed him, those who clothe him, those who check his medical wherever all the time, are those telling us that the president is poisoned, when in actual fact, the president is not poisoned? So this is where our hypocrisy, sort of crept in. And our education seems not to even be helping at all. Because those who are propagating this falsehood are the educated ones from the north. How can we now help our people if we can't use our situation as a way to build or to stop that same reoccurrence in the future, when we can't use the health of the president as a call on the leaders, on the elite, that they need to do something. Mr. President, Mr. Buhari is not the only one suffering from whatever he's suffering from. There are many, thousands of people who are suffering from the same thing. I want to believe that. So they are not honest with us. And when you say this, they quickly accuse you of wishing him, dead and all that. What would Buhari's death do for me or do for any of us? His party will still have to put someone there. The same people ruling us will still have to appoint someone to be the vice president or whoever they put there. They did it when Jonathan was there. They will do it if anything happens to Buhari. What is our own? Why should we now just be the ones holding on and praying? Why? Because those who are leading us, they don't love us. And that is just the truth. Whether you are an Hausa, whether you are a Fulani, whether you are a Igbo, Yoruba, see this situation through my own analysis now. Just see through it. The president is sick. They said he's not sick. But the president can't perform his function as the president of Nigeria. And to add salt to our injury, the president is not even in Nigeria. He's been away for 90 days. And these people, they started playing politics with the health of the president. They started playing politics. Started playing propaganda. They started playing all this brick-back dirty game. When the business of the state keeps dragging because there is supremacy battle within the presidency. It is obvious. It is obvious. The acting president can't act as a full president. Let us just be honest with ourselves. There is so much conflict of interest going on within the polity right now. You can keep telling yourself otherwise. I will understand, because I know about the existence of our hypocrisy. And that is what will take me to this second issue. The issue of restructuring and Biafra. Our hypocrisy. Look at us. When you ask a Yoruba man now, or a Yoruba woman that is opposed to Biafra, if you ask him or her, sir, madam, why did you just don't like Biafra? A Yoruba, I'm coming to the north, so when a Yoruba man or a Yoruba woman, ask him that the Yoruba man or a Yoruba woman that is opposed to Biafra, that is probably also vibrating on Facebook, telling us history that she can't even defend. You get that now? So when you look at them, when you ask them, and like, why, what is the reason that you are opposing Biafra? They will tell you it's because Nnamdi Kanu has been insulting our leaders. They will tell you because the Igbos, they are ungrateful. They will tell you because Nnamdi Kanu is a scammer. They will tell you because because they want to divide Nigeria. People who are opposing Biafra on social media. Because I took my time to really understand what this whole force is all about. Right? These are their reasons. They will give you all these reasons. And these reasons, they will defend to death. They will give you different other backup. But let me tell you this. All of this are basically because of ignorance in the country. Nigerians are so ignorant of their own history. That is number one. Then because of long time oppression on all the tribes in Nigeria, not just the Yorubas. So there is this impression that has sort of been created out of this experience, this 50, how many years are we now? 60 years independence or so. Right? They will tell you because Nnamdi Kanu insulted their leaders. They will tell you because the Igbos are asking for war. They will tell you because the Igbos want to divide Nigeria. They will tell you another different reasons they will give you. But mainly, they will tell you because Nnamdi Kanu insulted Yorubas and insulted, the leaders and all that. But now let us be honest with ourselves. Nnamdi Kanu chose that campaign style to attract attention to his own struggle. And so far, so good. It's working for him. And there's nothing anyone can do about that. So it's working for him. The Biafrans have stated their reasons why they don't want to be part of Nigeria anymore. They have stated their reasons. And out of their reasons, you know, one thing that actually interests me as a Yoruba man is the marginalization, the claim of marginalization in the country after the Civil War. I don't want to go into history because there's a Yoruba saying that he who wants to keep peace should not tell history. You shouldn't even go into history because in the process you say what you shouldn't say. But let us just use our present situation, the reality today, right? To you know, to counter whatever their own reasons are. They claim marginalization. But you as a Yoruba person, I don't know if you ever have any clue of what marginalization truly means. Those few of us, I mean, I won't even say few, some of us that were born after the Civil War, I mean those born in the 70s, 80s, 90s, who are today grown-ups, we may not actually understand what Nigeria was before the Civil War and what Nigeria became after the Civil War. And that is more reason why sometimes they tell you the gory past of that Civil War and all the made-up stories to back up everyone, whoever is talking about it. If you ask an Igbo man or you ask an Hausa man, they will tell the story of Civil War differently. But because you were born after the Civil War, right? So everything that you know were things these you know, these manipulators, this same establishment told you and they told us. But the truth of the matter is this: Nigeria was not like this. At independence, when we got our independence in 1960, Nigeria happens to be 3 nations in one country. That was the Nigeria we got from the colonialists. And you know that Nigeria then was, the Yorubas were doing their own thing. We were doing our own politics. We were doing our own commerce. We were doing our own thing, you know, on our own independent nation within a country. Just like the same system the Oyinbos have here in the United Kingdom. Because as our colonial master, they gave us parliamentary system of government. A government whereby each region controls their own resources. They control their own commerce. They control their own education. They do their own things, including their own security. That was the country that was given to us at independence. Which means we, the Yorubas, we had our own, what you call maybe 50-year plan agenda or 50-year development plan and all that. Part of our development plan that we got for being the western region of Nigeria from the colonialists, what we got then was able to, we were able, the leaders of that time, they were able to start everything they dreamed of, bringing to the Yoruba land. They were able to start them without having to negotiate with any other region within the country. When we were really making so much money from cocoa, from agriculture in the southwest, we were feeding ourselves. We were exporting food outside Nigeria, southwest Nigeria back then. We started free education. We started free education in the southwest. Even the people from the eastern part of Nigeria, the Igbos, the Biafrans today, benefited from that free education of western Nigeria at the time. The Igbos, the government of eastern region, they had their own development plan as well. They went into secretariat training, education, and all that for their own children. And that was how the elephant, and back in the north, it was also agriculture in the north. That was when we had that Granite Pyramid, whereby, you know, they were striving, everybody was doing well. Each region was developing according to their own pace. That was what we had. We have shillings, and we're spending our shillings. We're making our money. We're spending our money on healthcare, on education, on security, on infrastructure. We built Cocoa House, built University of Ile-Ife, built other big University of, you know, we had all of this. University of Ibadan. From our money. We did not negotiate with any region before we did all of that in the western region at the time. But immediately after 1966, January 15, 1966, the Ironsi coup, Kaduna Ezegu, that was the coup that brought unitary system of government to Nigeria. 1966. That was when, for the first time, even when we were still under the colonial masters, they gave us constitution that allowed the southern Nigeria to rule themselves in their, according to their own, you know, tradition and whatever laws. And in the northern part of Nigeria, they gave them their own laws that back their tradition, their culture, and everything as direct, indirect rule. So, which means even the colonialists never brought us together, even though we were the same country. They managed that we should do our things according to our beliefs, our tradition, our culture, our ways. It was so back then, even under the colonial masters, until 1966. So, after January 15, 1966 coup, the division of bringing us together as a country in the first place by the colonial masters became, more visible in the polity at the time, because the coup plotters killed the northern elite, the big, the powerful politicians from that region, because to them there was this planted discord within the Nigerian nation, within the Nigerian country, by the colonialists back then. And that notion was the North will keep ruling, while the South will keep following. So that was the seed of discord planted in Nigeria, within our system, because of our cultural differences before they left Nigeria. And that was what led to the first coup. The impression that the North always want to rule. The North thinks they are powerful. Or the white men gave Nigeria to the North. The mentality and the utterances of the leaders, the regional leaders of that time, those who have studied the political system of the 50s and 60s in Nigeria will understand what I mean. We didn't have a true Nigerian leader. We never had a true Nigerian leader from independence. We had powerful regional leaders. Awolowo was powerful Yoruba leader. Sardauna was a powerful northern leader. Nnamdi Azikiwe was a very powerful eastern leader. There was never a unified Nigerian leader from independence. That was why the unitary system of government brought by the military in 1966 was the last stroke that broke the camel's back, the Nigerians' the camel's back. So the junior officers in the army, you all know the story. The junior officers in the army felt slighted. They felt ridiculed that they were in the army and they couldn't protect their elite, their founding fathers. So they felt ridiculed, and they were so ashamed to keep being part of Nigeria. But they had a goal. We must destroy the country before we part ways. 1966. That was why July 28th or so, 1966, when the junior officers struck and they killed Agoyin Ironsi, killed Adekunle Fajuyi in Ibadan, killed all the Eastern leaders, including Yoruba leaders. We were in the middle, the Yorubas. We were in the middle. And we've always been paying the supreme price in keeping Nigeria one. Falsely, though. So doing that showed the buried hatred, the buried tribal rivalry within our country. It brought it to life. And since then, every successful leader in Nigeria, missed the opportunity of being a Nigerian leader. They've all been regional leaders, be it military, be it civilian, or whatever you call it. They've all been regional leaders in Nigeria. And we have been like that. And that was what led to the first civil war. Because immediately, Ironsi coup took place. And the message, the propaganda in the north, was that the Igbos wants to dominate Nigeria. And we must not let them. They have killed our founding fathers. You must fight and make sure no Igbo man is ahead of you anywhere. So these are the teachings they gave their youth in the north after that program. That was the teachings. We have to tell ourselves the truth. And this teaching is what many of them, the young northerners, the young Nigerians back then in the north, these are the teachings they grew up to know. This is the mindset they grew up to know. This is the truth, the only truth they know about their history. And they were told to fight and defend their dignity. And the only way they can keep their dignity is by making sure that no Igbo man is ever ahead of you in this project Nigeria. But we ignored it. We ignore all of that. We keep scratching our problems on the surface, forgetting the roots. But we, the Yorubas, thinking that we are smart and we are educated, we know it, we know that, blah, 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 without knowing nothing. We are in the middle. We are just always their punching bags. We are. So that is why when the whole problem was so much that it was obvious, it was apparent that we were going to go into civil war, what happened? The Hausas wanted the Yorubas on their side so that they can keep Lagos. Lagos cannot fall into the hand of the Biafrans. Ojukwu wants to keep the oil, even though most of these oil regions are also feeling like they are being marginalized within the system, the Eastern government system of the time. They felt like they are not being carried along in the system, in the political system, the Eastern government of that time. So the minority crisis within was a little bit ignored by the progenitors of this Biafra struggle. So Yorubas were, we were in the middle. Awolowo was in Calabar prison, a Yoruba leader in Calabar prison. a good bargaining chip to seek the support of the Yorubas. Why not us, what do you call it, a Yoruba leader in Calabar prison, a region that is going to end up falling into the Biafra territory? What if we use him to bargain and bring the Yorubas to our side? Keep Lagos so that we can keep the port in Lagos for whatever that is going to come in for Biafra. Awolowo got his freedom, and he got better offer from the Nigerian government led by Ojukwu Gowon. He got a better offer, a offer that we can call betrayal of trust. Whatever the deal, Ojukwu said he released Awolowo unconditionally. He never gave him any deal. And Awolowo said yes. He was never given any condition for his release from Calabar prison. So when he came back from Calabar, he still claims to be a Nigerian. So he opens the door to negotiate for his own people, the Yoruba people. And I won't blame him. And I will tell you why I won't blame him. The Biafra war was not a Yoruba war. Just like the fall within the Biafra struggle of that time was because of the ignored minority within the territory of Biafra who were ready to sabotage the struggle within. Some of you know the story and you know the history if you have not been listening to the doctored ones. So there were so many reasons why the Biafra struggle at the time was not generally accepted. At the time. But don't forget, I explained what led to the misunderstanding and the eventual war that we wasted millions of our people's lives. Awolowo got back to Nigeria, and to him, probably he could use that the Easterners want Yorubas, the Northerners want Yorubas. So he could use that to bring everybody back onto the negotiation table. But it never worked. Ojukwu had made up his mind. His people were tired. The killings in Kano after the after the coup in 1966, the killing, the massacre of Igbos in Kano, and the discrimination against the Igbos since Gowon came to government. All of these corroborated the stance of Ojukwu at the time. So he's made up his mind. All he needed was he needed the Yorubas to make it easier. So if he could take the Yorubas along with what the Nigerian government did to Awolowo, the slap and the jail of Awolowo by the government in Nigeria. So if he could take the Yorubas along, if he could use that sentiment to take the Yorubas along, probably they will be able to, they will be able to break Nigeria at the time. But Awolowo knew that Yorubas were not prepared for war. We were not prepared. We were caught in between. And we couldn't just take a promise of an independent country lightly just because someone says it is possible. And the same government in Nigeria are not saying, leave us, we want to send you away with the Biafrans. So if we can still talk, let us sit down to talk. Let us sit down together and talk. But Ojukwu had made up his mind. And he had reason so. He had reason to be so. There's nothing perfect about war. That is why people say you only know the beginning of war. Nobody knows the end of a war. He was so sure. He played his card. He thought he had his card intact. But he was betrayed at some point because people were making deals from the war. And at the end of the day, we used, I don't want to go into the story of other using humans as instrument of war, starving people because you want to win international sympathy and all that. I won't go into that. That's like blame game. But after the war came the ceasefire, the peace. Let us forgive and forget and move on. Rebuild, restructure, what else did they call it? Rebuild, reconcile, and then 3 R's. If anyone knows this, you can remind me, please. Ojukwu's concept. No victor, no vanquish. We are all one Nigeria. The war is over. But you and I know that the war is not over. It's never over. The tribal rivalry in Nigeria is as, is as fresh as it is in, 60 years ago. It's still as fresh, if not worse, today. The war is still on. The war is still on. It is still about supremacy of tribes, supremacy of clans, supremacy of class over one another. It is still the same thing. The greed of man. The marginalization is real. The Igbos, the Yorubas, the Hausas are being marginalized in Nigeria by the same people you call leaders. They unite in stealing from us. They are not Yorubas, they are not Fulanis, they are not Igbos, they are not Hausas. That is where we have all been missing it. That is why Nnamdi Kanu is the right person that many of you should listen to. If you have any mind of your own. When they want to loot from us, when they want to steal from us, in fact, when they want to kill us, they are always united. There is no Alhaji. There is no bishop. There is no Oluawo. When these people are sharing positions, when they are sharing money, when they are sharing contracts, when they are sharing oil blocks, they don't look it that way. They don't say it that way. The marginalization is real, and we are all being marginalized. So if you see Biafra struggle as a struggle to divide Nigeria, what if I ask you this simple question? What have you benefited from Nigeria as a Nigerian? Answer me correctly. Is it good education? Good health care? Security? How about jobs? What have you benefited that will make Nigeria a one indissoluble entity? Ask yourself this simple question and tell me where Nnamdi Kanu is going wrong. He insulted your leaders. He insulted your tribe. But is he going to be the first to insult us? Is he going to be the first to insult Yoruba? Is he going to be the first to trash Yorubas? Out there, right there, in your, on your faces, right there. They killed Abiola. Nothing happened. They sent our elders, our respectable elders. They sent them to jail for doing nothing in Nigeria. And you still think you've not been insulted? You still think you've not been ridiculed? It is because of this ignorance. We have been producing leaders in Yoruba land. One of them is Tunde Bakari. Pastor Tunde Bakari. A man many will say is an upright man. He's a dependable man. He's an honest man. In that same tribe, Yoruba, we produced the world-renowned novelist, Professor Wole Soyinka. People that you will expect to be so upright to the end. To the end. But they watch our people. They watch our education collapse. They watch our healthcare system collapse. But they are our leaders. But they've not insulted us. And what is the essence of our existence when those who are supposed to stand for us are standing for themselves? And you and I are left to care for ourselves, whether we live or we die. It's none of their business. God has brought them to be among us, and we must worship them. And we must not let anybody insult them and get away with it, even though we don't have 3 square meals guaranteed on our land. The land where we've once been training those who are currently leading Nigeria, Igbo, Hausa, who came to our land because they found our land flourishing enough to pass education and successes to them. They saw it. But the land is now like the land of the destitute, where poverty walks with people on the street, and when you greet people, you greet poverty just by their side. That's why when you greet people on the street, you greet them twice. Good afternoon, sir. How are you, sir? And when they say, I'm fine, sometimes you have to ask, are you all right, sir? In Yoruba land, the land of Awolowos, the land of Ese Lakitolas, the land of the Shijo Ades, the land of people who stood, despite the fact that they held, traditional titles in the Yoruba land, they still stood in public place and they stood upright. They fought for us. But today we have people who are claiming to be leaders, but they keep insulting us. They keep assaulting us. They keep oppressing us. And they keep daring us to do our worst. They have the same thing in the eastern part of the country. That Igbos have no respect means not because they don't have respect. It's because they don't have respect for disrespectful people. People that shouldn't be respected, no matter how old they are. No matter their education, no matter their public status and all that, if they don't deserve respect, they don't deserve respect. So what is it doing that is giving you headache? What is it doing? What is it saying? I would say worse. When things get to some certain level, soon, I would say worse. Because maybe when we start telling ourselves the truth, we'll start knowing that most of these years we have been fighting battles of people who never wished us well. They are leaders. They are what do you call it? They are the insect-infested firewood that we brought back home. And the whole house is now infested, by ants and all that. So they are not our leaders. They are not our leaders. They are not. And whatever they say against them, ask yourself this and tell yourselves the truth. What can you say about them that is really out there in the interest of our people? We are Yorubas. We have elders in Yoruba land. We have elders. Respectable elders. Responsible elders. Not political hooligans. Political criminals. Parading themselves as elders. Gallivanting everywhere. Jumping up and down. With security guns and all that. Oppressing us, suppressing us, intimidating us. You can't call them leaders. If anybody wants to call them names, they are free to call them names. But we have a division within the Yoruba nation. And that's going to take me back to what I said earlier. Our hypocrisy. Our hypocrisy. Our fake lives. Things that, are complete opposite of who we are. That will take me there now. There is division, there is jealousy, there is, rivalry within the nation called Yoruba. If you make headlines too much in Yoruba land, you are automatic enemy because you are becoming too ambitious. They will unleash media on you. They will denigrate you. They will blackmail you. They will do everything within their rank or their power to decimate you. That is the nation we have. And I think that is one of the things Nnamdi Kanu saw in the Ndigbo, that I decided to just bring them to the open and ridicule them and call their bluff. Because for so long, we have been having leaders, elders, and they watch over because they meet all the time because they are all contractors. They run about looking for contracts and all that, either directly or through proxies. That's who they are. When an opportunity, when there's vacant in the government position, they quickly push their children there. Those are the leaders we have. So when they served as ministers or a PA to president in 1960 or 1969 or 19 whatever, their children are now serving as a PAs, SAs, senators, this, that, in 2017. Because that is, to them, that is the legacy. And those are the people you call your leaders. So when there is a vacancy in the government placement, they quickly push their children there. They send their children there. And those who are generous enough will make their children's PAs. You'll be writing for them. Those are the leaders you are defending. The leaders like Saraki. No matter his atrocity, there is no way you will trade him for an honest Igbo man. Because you are a Yoruba man, ignorant and blind. That is just it. You think protecting them gives you protection? And yet, we have invaders who come to our lands, who go to our vulnerable people in our small villages and all that to kill them. They kill them and they take over their lands. And they live like kings within all our territory and all that. And we have leaders, newspaper leaders, press conference elders. They love it. They call press conference in Federal Palace Hotel. They will call a press conference in Konuga Hilton Hotel. Because that's who they are. They will be talking about a Niger Delta, Niger Delta degradation, the land there and all that, destruction and all that in Niger Delta. They will be discussing it in Konuga Hilton Hotel in Abuja. Those are the leaders you are defending. They fought our people in Ile-Ife. People died. Hausa, Yoruba, Nigerians. They arrested Yorubas, Nigerians. And they took them to Abuja for press conference because that is who they are, the elite. They love it. They love that show of power, they don't care about the problem. They don't want to go down there to check what is the problem, what caused this problem. How can we prevent this in the future? They are not interested, so to say. And when they do, they go with camera, they go with everything to show you what they are doing. Look at what happened in Anambra today. I've never heard of that in my life. That without investigation, without anything, even the church, I saw people going in and out after the shooting. Nobody is taking evidence of anything. Nobody is, everybody, the whole crime scene has already been, infiltrated. The whole evidence has been sort of destroyed. That is who we are, Nigerians. So because of that, a governor could come out and say the reason for the killing was because of two brothers fighting within 2 hours of the incident. And the whole media house is already publishing it. because it suits the narrative. That is who we are. That is why when you hear that there's a bomb blast in Abuja, they quickly look for scapegoat to present to the media, so that, I mean, to put you in the media, so that the media will show you that we are working. We have arrested 30 people. Nobody cares what happened to that 30 people after 2-3 weeks, because another thing is going to come up again, and we'll be needing another showroom and show off. That is who we are. That is who we are. A governor that is here to have real security briefings came out where people were killed, where they were worshiping their God. Freedom of religion, freedom to practice your religion is in the Constitution. Nobody should question you. I can decide to start worshiping Shango. It's none of your business. Constitution says I have the right to. I can decide to start worshiping Ocean, and I'll go there every morning to pray there. It's none of your business. But because there is no tolerance, the system is divided against itself. So everybody is always concerned about everything. Everybody is just concerned about absolute nothing. Things that really matters, things that affect us, things that we should take serious, things that we should keep record of to prevent in the future. We take them with levity. You know, kid gloves. They say the governor said nobody cares about any investigation. Nobody. So because the governor came and he gave us the story, right? Then everybody will now start waiting for the day they will give us the name of the people, and then that will kill the story. What happened afterward? Nothing. Because the whole thing is going to end up as a total bollock. That's who we are until another one happens again, until the next one. So that is not right. And that is what this man has been preaching. That this whole thing is just nonsense. You don't have government. And if you are fighting or you are defending government or you are fighting government, you are just wasting your time. People are calling for restructuring because they know Nigerians are so ignorant. They don't know anything. They don't read. They know us very well. They quickly passed some bills, and rejected restructuring. The candidacy, things that will just arouse our, our enthusiasm, just something that will make us optimistic about everything, forgetting the real problem. And then Nnamdi Kanu came out and he said, they are just deceiving themselves. That's what he said. They are deceiving themselves. Because, number one, they know the restructuring is not going to happen. So why can't he just give him referendum? I've seen Igbos on social media fighting their brother, cooking propaganda against him and doing all of that. I don't feel sorry for you because at least you know what you do. But those of you who are still seeing the struggle, the Biafra struggle, as a class struggle, you are those who should try and wake up and try and, live up to get in tune with reality. Many of you are objecting your Biafra just because of class. Someone from Anambra can't be the leader where we have people in Enugu. Someone can't come from Owerri to be in the leadership structure just because we have some people from Oka. You are deceiving yourselves. Let me be honest with you. The reality is this. Nigeria is not working. And if you want to get a working Nigeria, you have to demand for something big. When you decide to take something big, they will sit down, they will sit down with you to have a discussion. But it's so unfortunate that we have dumb people that we call leaders in Nigeria. They are dumber than the dumps. They would rather offer bribe than negotiate properly. That is why they are singing the bell of war Some of you are saying you don't want war, you don't want that. No. You are still ignorant of what is going on. And you need to get in tune with the reality now. The truth of the matter is that people who are frustrated with the system, the current system in Nigeria, there are many. You may not have got to that frustration level. But let me be honest with you, that you are in that your small room, your small office, or maybe wherever you are, and then talking about 1969, 19 this, 19 that, what happened, 2 million people die, it's going to be war and all that. You are deluding yourself. Nigeria is already sitting on the keg of gunpowder. One joke with if anyone mistakenly ignite a lighter now, Nigeria will go up in flames. The frustration is so much. And if you think the current the current government we have in Nigeria can subdue anything and kill any agitation in Nigeria today, you are living in the past. Take that from me. Because you know why? We have been, we have reached the rock bottom as a country right now. There is so much they are keeping away from the public that if perchance these things get to the public anger, they can't contain it. Just tiny bit. It remains tiny bit. And you know, many of you are living in the past glory of Nigeria. That glorious military, that glorious police force, that this and that. You are living in the past. Boko Haram came to fight Nigeria. And they came through the ideology of religion. That is why it's so difficult to defeat them. Someone came and he said, Biafra or death. You are sitting in your room, predicting, analyzing, and all that. Because to you, Nigeria will always be Nigeria. Yes. But I don't pray for war in my country. And I pray that those in charge will think right and do the right thing. And they will give Biafra their referendum. Defeat Kanu. If you think Biafrans, the Igbos don't want Biafra. To shut someone like Nnamdi Kanu up, give him Biafra. Let us go to the field. Let's go to the field and campaign. Let the government of Nigeria tell Biafrans, the Igbos, why they should remain in Nigeria. And let Nnamdi Kanu by then tell them why they should leave Nigeria. Some of you, out of your hypocrisy and your too low and your whatever, Facebook, social media analysis. You know what I mean? You and your social media analysis every day. My brothers and sisters. The truth of the matter is this. The Nigerian government, the establishment knows that if they call for Biafra tomorrow, referendum for Biafra tomorrow, over 90% of Biafrans will vote, Igbos will vote for Biafra, including Port Harcourt. And you know what that means? That means make everybody pack and bag. Those where they take oil for Niger Delta. Those where they take contract from the people in Niger Delta. Pack your bag. Except, like Nnamdi Kanu said, except if you want to join Biafra, you are welcome. If you are tired of Nigeria, pick up Biafran passports at that time. Give him referendum. Stop raising your voices on social media. Stop proving to us that you know better. You know Nigeria more than us. We agree. We agree. You know Nigeria more than us. You are better off. You are historical. We know. Agreed. But I challenge you. Tell them to give him Biafra. If he's a fraudster or not. Let them risk it. Britain or United Kingdom risked it with Scotland. And they won. Let Nigeria try and see if we will not claim or we will not ask for our own referendum in Yoruba land. You see, this mentality that we have some people that must be those that must speak for us, that mentality is long, long, long gone. Nobody is more important to anybody than anybody in Nigeria. Nobody is more important to me. I mean, there's nobody, no man is important more than me in Yoruba land. Nobody. I'm not saying I'm important more than anybody, but I can tell you as Omoluabi, I'm Omo Yoruba. A full-blooded Yoruba man. You cannot face me and tell me you are more important or you are more this than me probably because you have money or probably you have position or you have whatever. Because I keep telling myself every day, I am not better than anybody. And nobody is more Yoruba than me. You can read your history, you can do whatever. And that is where I see Nigeria. I am a Nigerian. And there is nobody, living or dead, that is more Nigerian than me. It is my country until something happens that changes that. So why am I saying all of this? If Nigerian government knows that we are all equal, and a particular region is so hungry that they can't take the impunity, the marginalization anymore, you don't limit it to Facebook and start telling us about waiting, waiting go happen, waiting not go happen. We know waiting go happen. Now die. See, all die, now die. And there are people who have chose that. But what we are doing right now, or what is going on right now in Biafra, shouldn't call for war. It shouldn't call for war. I don't know how you're seeing it, except if you have been a commissioner before, or you have been a minister before, or you have been a governor before, or anything before. You said don't chop inside the porridge. You don't chop them. So now you go come here, come they tell us say something no possible. Because to you, it no possible. We agree, it no possible. But risk can. So there is no analysis. Sure, you get me now. There is no analysis to justify hostility against the Biafrans. There's no nothing. It is just ignorance. That's what I say. It is just ignorance. Some of us are educated, but we are worse than illiterate, so to say. Ignorance. That is exactly what is going on. Nnamdi Kanu knows that not all Igbos want Biafra. That is why it is called referendum. Referendum. Why are they afraid of that? What is it that you are gaining from this corrupt system? Tell me something you are gaining from this corrupt system that you think breaking Nigeria is a no-no. You are an Hausa man, I'm a Yoruba man, or you are an Igbo man. We understand the Igbos that okay, those ones they've made up their mind. But as an Hausa man and as a Yoruba man like me, apart from the hope you are building that it's going to get better, what can you say is your gain as a Nigerian in your country? What can you say? So that Nnamdi Kanu abuse anybody or he talks down on anybody and you are this and that. We have to stand up to, in order to shut him up from attacking our tribe and attacking us as cowards, then we must start living like, like bold people and not like cowards and hypocrites that we truly are. It may be so hard for you to take this. But you just have to. It is obvious. Those who are leading us are not doing so in our interest. Our region is becoming barren and barren land. They are turning our people to destitute. The poverty is taking over our land. Education is gone in our land. Healthcare is history in our land. What about power, electricity? We suffer the same like the rest of the country. But your leaders are always telling you who to blame. They blame everybody except themselves. You know what I mean? I know it talks to them. I mean, it attacks them as well. And that's what so many people, you are angry because they attack your leaders. You are angry. You can't be talking to our leaders like that. Who are your leaders? Ladoke Akintola University has been under lock and key, under padlock for over a year, over 1 year. And we have Yoruba leaders. So if someone now calls them names, you are angry. Are you sure you are, what is wrong with us? We are always, I've read a lot, and I don't know, some of you may be watching me right now, and you realize that I'm actually talking to you, because that's the truth. I keep asking people that if we want to fight, we must know why we want to fight and what we are fighting for. I asked the last time, I said, who are those fighting for Yorubas in the Nigeria project today? Nobody could give me an answer because there is none. Nobody is fighting for Yoruba. Nobody. So you couldn't give me the answer. But when they abuse your leaders, you are angry. You call them names. You are angry because Farashare keeps talking about Buhari. Because to you, you are Omoluabi. You are told not to disrespect your elders. But your elders are disrespecting you every day, every time. They don't care about you. They don't care about anybody. But you still go to them to do rankadede. You still go to them to raise your 2 hands and your 1 leg to say, Babasa, Babasa. But you have nothing to point out and say, to God be the glory. Education in the Southwest was like in comatose before this man mobilized people and all that, and they reinstalled our education back in Southwest. We don't have anything to point at. The only thing we keep pointing at are these figures, these people. You don't want anybody to call them names, even though if they are not doing what they say they are going to do. Your situation remains the same without changing. And they tell you it's important for you to fight because someone is abusing someone than for you to fight to make them do what they said they are going to do. So we need to talk to ourselves, and that will take me to this 2019, the youth and these politicians and all that. Let me be honest with you. Someone like me, I've made up my mind that until May 29, 2019, when we will bring in people across the country to take charge of their government, that is if Biafra is still part of us, if they've not got their own date for referendum. So let us first shock them at their fault, at where they believe is their stronghold and nobody can, change. Let us run for offices. Let people stand up, mobilize, sensitize people, encourage people to register to vote, and stand against that rogue representing your area, that you yourself know that if you have your way, you send him out of that place in another 24 hours, if you have your way. Yes, you can send him out on the 29th of May 2019 if you start the journey with us now. Start it with us. Let us open the minds of our people, the youth. Let us encourage them to stand out and stand firm in a new ideology that is different to what these old hags have been offering us. Let us be the leaders we want in that country. Don't go back and queue behind them again. Don't go back and run errands for them anymore. The more you do that, the more we keep getting what we are getting right now. People that can't understand our problems. So we need to encourage ourselves. We need to look beyond this current system. We need to look beyond our fear We need to start looking inward. There's something within you that says you can do it. You can be part of this. Reject money politics. Reject godfatherism. Reject imposition and electoral violence. Don't be the tools they use in destroying us. Stop obeying them. Stop listening to them. Stop honoring their orders. Stop going to them. Start doing the same thing you are doing for them, for yourself. Be the leader that is missing in your development drive in your community. Rise up and be part of this. We can no longer keep backing this bunch of failures. They have failed. And because we've not told them, they think they are still very much, important to us. Let us face them and tell them. Let us pick the brightest and the brilliant and the intelligent among us to take over the leadership in Nigeria. I have started it. I've started our own mobilization here and there to encourage the youth to be the leader they want in Nigeria. The alternative. So this is where, we think we are taking ourselves to now. And because I'm a Yoruba man, we have started it in Ogun State, bringing the youth together, encouraging them to stand firm, encouraging them to, to be the promoter of peace and education, so to say, so that we can educate ourselves and re-educate ourselves until we get it right. You can join us. You can be part of us. The ignorance in Yoruba land, just like we have in the rest of Nigeria, is so big and is worrisome. People are arguing, they are fighting over what shouldn't even be their business in the first place. People should be busy fighting these same leaders who promised us heaven and earth and all that, and they gave us hell. These are the people we should face now. We should force them to use our resources for us in Yoruba land. Whether Biafra is going to come, whether Biafra is not going to come, you don't have any role to play in it if you are not from the southeast Nigeria. So it's none of your business. So it is always better to mind our business now, and our business is to question our leaders. What is going on? Why is our situation this terrible? You keep lying to us, no opportunity for people. You take this money abroad and you leave us with nothing. Let us start asking them questions. Let us start questioning their political decisions. When they go to Party A, they tell us that, it's because Party B was bad. And within the period of time, they are back to back. Party B, they told us was bad. And we still follow them there. No ideology, no concept, no nothing. Just what our stomach says we should do. It is time to change that. It is time to care about ourselves. It is time to fight for what is ours. Killings here and there, killings up and down. Because it hasn't got to you doesn't mean that you are better than those who are dead. Every now and then, crime in Nigeria keep rising and rising and rising. And who are the victims? The poor. We are the victims. We can't be protected. They can't do it. Because they won't do it. And not until you stand up, not until you withdraw your support from them, not until you stand out and do it differently, nothing is going to change. Nothing. We have to change tactic, and that's why I actually like what Nnamdi Kanu is doing in Anambra. You may not like it. You may call it. Your jealousy may make you say anything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I keep telling people, it doesn't matter what you feel, what you think. If you think the government of Nigeria should arrest him, it doesn't matter. If you think he should be sent to jail and all that, it doesn't really matter anymore. The truth of the matter is, the name Nnamdi Kanu in the southeast of Nigeria and south is more powerful than all the governors. The 5 governors in the east, the 5 governors in the south. Put all of them together. All the 10 governors from that axis. 11 governors or so. All of them. Nnamdi Kanu's name carries weight. Right? Far better than them. The only thing they know is force. The power of force, the power of brutality. They don't have the power of persuasion. And that is what makes him better than them. So it doesn't matter what you feel. Whether you think he should be arrested, whether you think he should be killed, whether you think he should be whatever, it doesn't matter anymore. The name, your jealousy, your hatred, your whatever, and your ignorance, so to say, we change nothing. It will add nothing, and it will take nothing away from it. Because if you are still living in that past of that use of force to settle civil issue, there is a shock waiting for you. There is a shock. And I don't think Nigeria can stand it. Let's be honest with ourselves. I don't think. The propaganda being played in the north will only last for a while, because there is going to be a rebellion that is going to, an uprising that is going to come from the north very soon. There's going to be an uprising in the north very soon. And that uprising is going to be against the elite that many of you think controls the people there. The propaganda machine in the north, where they are lying to people, telling fake stories about what is going on in Nigeria to deceive their people. The Arab nations, the Arab countries, before the Arab Spring, they were like that. Countries of propaganda, countries of religious extremism. But when the Arab Spring came, it consumed all the dictators. It doesn't matter what happened after. That's what happened when people are pushed to the extreme. There will be uprising, and the uprising you are seeing currently in the east, the agitation you are seeing in the south, in the west, and the division you are witnessing in the north. Uprising is coming in Nigeria. It's just a matter of time. It's a matter of time. The frustration in the country is boiling, and it's boiling so high. And the northern youth are already questioning their leaders. Like, they are not, it never used to be like this. Why would you allow this Biafra of a thing? Masop came, you crushed Masop. You penetrated Masop, you bribed them, eventually you divided them. There's factions in Masop now. But IPOP came. Our leaders, what is going on? This guy is waxing stronger every day. And their leaders have no solution because they don't even understand it. It is new. The time is here. The time to take Nigeria either to the promised land, or everybody walk or goes their own way. This is the time. The time is here. You might be living in the past. I'm not sorry for you. You are not alone. There are many people who are also living in the past. You have friends who comment on your wall. They tell you you are right. They love your analysis. They do all of that. They are deceiving you because you are all deceiving yourselves. Something is going to give. When situation gets this tough, something is going to give. And in this case, the unity of the people will make their oppressors bow. It's just a matter of time. It doesn't matter how you take it. He said there won't be election in Anambra. The guy gave an order and he said, sit at home. Nobody should go anywhere. We want to honor our heroes. Our heroes who fell during the civil war in Nigeria. And everybody obeyed. You are in your room. Maybe in America or in London. They vibrate on Facebook. They analyze. They write nonsense. They show muzzle. In London. The guy did Enugu. He did Anambra. They give order. You did London. They counter the order. They tell us about one Major General Zakaria, Major General this, Major General that. Dead people. You are sitting in your house there. Right? No wahala. Now from there you go sit. They will tell you say referendum date. They don't choose referendum date. You go come join the campaign that people should not go. And people will be asking you, what thing you won't give us? Where you no give us for 60 years? What thing you won't give us? Where you never know so you supposed give us for the last 60 years where we did Nigeria. Now where we won't go, they tell us say you go give us that. Give us. Now waiting you hold us, you they give us. That's when you will know that all this your nonsense you are writing on Facebook. All this your nonsense, all this your rubbish analysis and all that. We have people that will keep disappointing you because they don't think like you. Because they know that, you know, however you see it, you are just, you know, you're just talking from your own ignorance. That's exactly what is going on. The situation is different now. And the earlier you accept it, the better for you. Someone gave sit-at-home order. Sit-at-home order. And people sat at home, they did, nobody went, you know, nobody came out. Eh? And you are there in your house. They tell us what's going to happen. If Nigeria army go there, if Nigeria army do this. Who told you they want to fight Nigeria army? That is where you are missing it. They are not fighting Nigeria army. They want Nigeria army to fight themselves. Go and fight. Except if you start going to people's houses and shooting them that they should come out and vote. Now, I said there won't be election in Anambra State. You are still on your Facebook. They vibrate. They give us analysis. They give us waiting to happen. I'm not sorry for you. I am just sorry for your ignorance. And you don't know. That is where we have problem. Assuming you know, probably you will learn. Call referendum for the guy. Tell them to call referendum for the guy. And you will know that your analysis is as fake as you. It's as fake as the fake life you are living on social media. Everybody's what do you call it? So opinionated today. They know about everything. I agree. Social media. They analyze. You know. On social media. And the guy keeps proving us wrong in Nigeria. Everything you are writing, all the nonsense, all the headlines, all the manipulated, doctored, what do you call it, fake news. It keeps proving all of you wrong because you are just writing nonsense in that your house. They analyze. You will see headline that says Nnamdi Kanu says so and so. You will jump on Facebook because you have followers. You have people who are writing, who are commenting under your post, telling you nonsense. The guy is telling the truth. He's telling about our situation. It's the same situation you said they talk about. But because it came from him, jealousy, who him be Nnamdi Kanu, who be him father, slave mentality. He is somebody who studied these people and their history and is not happy. You know what I mean? He's not happy. He wants to change things. What have you attempted? What have you attempted for the same nonsense you are writing on Facebook every day? How Nigeria is bad, how Nigeria is corrupt, how the police is this, how this and that, blah, 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 blah. What effort have you made? You sat there, they analyze. They tell us what's going to happen in next week and all that. Now here we did. They said Nnamdi Kanu, if he wants to fight for Biafra, he should leave UK and come to Nigeria. Don't just stay in the UK and be right and be saying nonsense. Come to Nigeria. Pessimists. People loud mouth, no sense. You know, those with free Wi-Fi, free subscription, and the rest of it. They come on Facebook, they turn political analysts, historians, professors. If they're born on Nnamdi Kanu, he should come to Nigeria. He should not stay in the UK. Idiots that are following him, they are not, blah, 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 blah. He came to Nigeria. He's in Nigeria. He was arrested because they trailed him to wherever they wanted to arrest him. And they trailed the propaganda out there. We arrested him in the midst of women. Nigeria government, useless government. Telling people, they arrested him like he's a criminal. And he's done nothing. Nothing. They arrested him. They called him criminal. He did nothing. He was just talking about what is going on in his country. And he's calling them names they don't like. what is in the what is actually in the names? If you do something nice, you know, they arrested him in your usual manner, in your room there, right there. You grabbed your phone or you grabbed your laptop. They analyze. The guy is so stupid. He shouldn't even have traveled to Nigeria. He shouldn't blah, 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 blah. He's just going to die. They will kill him like Giwa. They will kill him. In your room there. Right there. They analyze. They tell us what will happen. The guy came out. He was in the custody of DSS. Where many of you, if you go there and you spend 1 week, you will turn to Mumu. You turn to a recorder. Start vomiting nonsense. The guy was there. The guy was with them in DSS court. And they brought him to court. He said, tell Buhari that he is mad. That's what he said. You all saw the video in court. DSS officials were there. You that can tell us what will happen. You that can tell us how things go. Nigeria. You know Nigeria politics so much. You are so good analyzing. Facebook analyst. The guy was with DSS. In court. He said, your Buhari is not educated enough to jail me. Go and tell your Buhari. Buhari was president. He was in Nigeria. He said, Buhari is mad. He said it in the presence of Buhari security. They did nothing. They did nothing. Until they were tired that they had to release him. You were there. They released him. They gave him stringent bail conditions. That was something for you to analyze as well as a political analyst on Facebook, on Twitter, on Sahara. Analyzing. The condition they gave this Kanu is going to go back to jail soon. He's going to do this, he's going to do that. Do you think he's so afraid of jail like you are afraid to speak the truth about your terrible situation? Do you think everybody is afraid of jail? Because you are so timid in your own deeds as a person, then automatically everybody is like you. Everybody. He was in jail for 1 year. Not for once did he come to court with his head bowed or head down. He is always screaming. He wants to die. You are there in your room. They analyze. They explain what will happen to us. They release the guy. The guy called their bluff because he is educated. And education is not limited to what you get from that 4 corners of your classroom. It's beyond that. He is educated. He said if Buhari could violate court orders and never obey court orders, Buhari is not bigger than him. And he's right. He's very right. That they can arrest him and put him somewhere that won't make them right. It doesn't make them right. It makes them, worse. And he knows. And he is, I don't think he cares. You are the one who is always using paracetamol for someone else's headache. He's going to go back to jail. Now today, the guy spent 1 year in jail. You are worried that he's going to go back to jail. Is he the one that should be worried that he's going to go back to jail, or you, a pessimist, someone who is unsure of anything, just analyzing, political analyst on Facebook? Someone is there proving us right. Proving us wrong every time. Proving your whatever wrong. They said they're going to arrest him again. Arrest who? They mounted roadblock on his way because they knew he was coming. In his country, presently, in his own land. You mounted roadblock and you put people who can't even speak his language to mount the roadblock to stop him from entering a state in Nigeria. Who does that? And the guy sent them away. You started vibrating on Facebook again. Started suffocating. This is Nnamdi Kanu. This is... And if they see anybody get problem, my brother, now you get problem. Oh, you may not accept it too. Because I'm not a doctor. But if you are seeing the symptoms of everything I've been talking about, my brother, you get problem. Honestly. The guy is there with them. He say me then kill her. You did there, they tell us waiting go happen. You they tell us say this and that go happen. Waiting won't happen, we never happen. We ask ourselves, waiting won't happen, we never happen. You arrested someone, put them in jail for 1 year. No judgment, no case brought against him. You said he's a terrorist. You couldn't prove that. You said he's planning to cause violence in Nigeria. You couldn't prove that. And at the end of the day, you wanted to make deal, like usual, the way they made deal with all these Niger Delta militants. And you rejected the deal. Guess what? They just released him. They said, oh, what we are going to do is that we are going to make them hate him. Maybe when he's with them, and he started misbehaving, they can hate him. Then by so doing, Biafra will die. Rather than that to happen, the same governor that went to negotiate for his release, that release him, will rubbish him, release him. The same governor today cannot live in their state with their 2 eyes closed, because Nnamdi Kanu is coming there tomorrow. The same people. Now, those who managed to release Nnamdi Kanu because of all these people, believing that they will take care of him, they are now accusing them of being the ones sponsoring Nnamdi Kanu. You see confusion. You too, you are confused. That's why I like to confuse you. You can see how I confuse you now there. Just say everything, blah, 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 just to confuse you. That is exactly what is going on. You are confused. The media is confusing you. Everybody is just playing with your, fingering your brain. Everybody is just doing everything with your brain because you've made yourself available for that. They manipulate you. You see the truth, you don't want to touch it. You don't want to say it because you don't want to lose your friends. Do you know what I mean? Nnamdi Kanu is there. He's already violated his bail conditions. Can someone move the motion? Do you think they don't see it? You are the only one who is saying it, Abi. Now only you they see say Nnamdi Kanu don't violate in bail condition. They know they see. Make them arrest him now. Make them try him now. That one will be the phase 2 of the struggle. Make them try him. You still say they don't know. Now you go tell them say Nnamdi Kanu they meet 1 million people, they meet 2 million people. They know they see. Burata did, everybody did, everybody they behave, you see, if you don't know. All the nonsense they did in Igbo land, in Southeast, before the release of Nnamdi Kanu. Have you noticed that? Have you seen them try that again? Because they know they are security agents. They gather security. That means security report. They know. They know. The whole world is focusing on Nigeria now. Because Nnamdi Kanu has exposed Nigeria so much that the brutality going on in that country, only someone who is not mentally right, okay, will not listen to them. You just have to listen to them. You will just take your time and listen to them. You know. Take your time and listen to them. Because what they are complaining of is the same thing we are suffering in Yoruba land. You can't send your child to school anymore. Private school is now replacing public schools. And private schools are actually, they are actually no-go area for the poor people. Education is flying out of the window already. So we can't fight corruption if education is expensive. But in Yoruba land, education is turning luxury. You are a Yoruba man or a Yoruba woman watching me right now. Tell me what is education in your own state, in Yoruba land. We have leaders there now. Are they not considering the future of your own children? Are they not? Should they not be considering their future? Eh? We have leaders there. What is going on with your health care in your state, a Yoruba woman? Tell me. Can you walk in now and get government NHS, what do you call it, support for your child's heart surgery? No. Can you get proper cancer treatment in Nigeria from your government free of charge? Now, the answer is no. So that one should be the reason why you are fighting. That one should be the reason why you are angry on social media. Not because Nnamdi Kanu says Obasanjo is a monkey. That is none of our business. These are things that should be worrying you, should be worrying me. Not, and I know no matter how much I say it, those who have been programmed to be like that, no matter how educated they are, no matter how exposed they are, they will still keep fighting over that nonsense, over that frivolity. But I'll keep saying my own. I'll keep saying my own. You know what I mean? Mine is, if this is how we have been thinking, and things are getting this bad as into this level, let us change the way we are thinking, and let us know that probably our own solutions to our problem, didn't work. And so far it's not working, let us change it. Let us stop having these views painted for us by the same leaders who are supposed to keep us, safe, happy. So let us start seeing beyond this picture of these tribal differences, this religious, whatever. Let us see beyond it. I don't think that is something that should be difficult for us to do. It shouldn't be. Because since we have been seeing ourselves along this tribal nonsense, we haven't made any progress at all. No progress. We just keep fighting ourselves and, writing nonsense about ourselves on the social media. Gaining nothing but division. Division and further division. That is why I want to preach peace when it comes to understanding ourselves on the social media. I want to say this again. I've said it before. I want to say this to my Biafran brothers. People always see you as the aggressors. They always see you as those pushing for all this trouble and all that because of what you say about so-so person or so-so personality in Nigeria. You can change it. You can start making friends. It works well. The rules, the what do you call it, the 48 laws of power rules that says steer the water so you can catch the fish. You have used that instrument already. It is time to stop it. It is time to stop spreading this division, this hatred, this racism. Because yes, we Nigerians are racist. Yes, we are. Once you have discrimination feeling towards another race or tribe, you are a racist. So maybe we should just start from there. Start preaching peace and asking for referendum. Pass this message to people who you think can at least build on this. It is time. We've heard you loud and clear. You want Biafra, you will get Biafra. But you need friends after Biafra, not enemies. You need friendly neighbors, not, So we need that. And on that note, I'm going to end this broadcast this evening. And I hope my message gets to the real people that really needs it. And they will act on it. Let us change the way we do things, including the way we see one another. Let us start from there. Then we take it off from there. And by the special grace of God, Biafra will come. Oduduwa Republic will come. Even if we have to end it up on restructuring. And on that, I will explain further next time. So until I see you next time, you have a beautiful weekend and then a beautiful week, so to say. Good night from here. My ego is out.